Hi, everybody.
Hello, welcome to Live Lunch Season 2.
Season 2.
And
They
we've
thought
got,
they'd never get us back.
got a different set.
We've been signed for Season 2.
Yeah.
Thank you to the powers that might be that have agreed for us to carry on this incredible live lunch. For all of you 5 viewers, you are welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for campaigning. Thank you for sending all your emails into the BBC.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We have a new background.
Yeah.
It's art.
It took me a while. It took me about 3 years to get that done. I did it upside down, like Michelangelo.
Yeah.
I didn't actually do it at all. Nothing to do with me.
It's so cool that I have no idea what it... It was done by Megan's husband, Joel Nicholas.
A different
Joel 2. Joel 2.0.
Joel 2.0.
Yeah. So.
An advance on Joel 1.0.
Advance on Joel.
An upgrade.
The second.
I mean, I am a big fan.
Yeah.
Of which one? Of both Joels. Both
both.
Joels.
Of course.
Yeah. So, new background, season 2 of Live Lunch, episode 1. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your life. Thank you for spending your lunch break with us. Feel free to drop in any questions you might have, and the wonderful Megan will bring them to the table. Food and coffee should appear magically any minute.
Amen.
We are still in our Sermon on the Mount. Just before we start the preach, have you done anything exciting whilst we've been on our season break? Because you've probably had a massive holiday.
Well, we had
since
Easter.
we're not doing.
We didn't have I didn't have a massive long holiday, but I had a few days off over Easter, which was.
So you
good.
do more than just live lunch. So I
do, yeah. No, I know. It's hard to believe that I could do more than that, but I had a good Easter. Had lots of highlights, lots of good time with family and church and. Travelling a little, spent some time with friends in one or two other countries doing some work, but I was particularly pleased to be here over Easter and to stop and get refreshed. I went fishing with my son Calvin and we caught some big fish, which was fun. It's just fun. It's good. I can show you some pictures because I'm showing everyone the pictures and it's boring them. You can look on my Instagram to see, but I just loved stuff like that.
And you've been in Berlin last weekend. How did that go?
Last weekend I was with the church in Berlin that we planted. It was a very a short trip again, but it was a good time. It was at their summer camp, the Mosaic Church summer camp, and it was just good to be with them. Yeah, good fellowship. Good to hear how the church is going. To be with the leaders as well. It was excellent.
Great. Are we having trouble with our Instagram?
It might just be my phone.
Is Instagram live?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we're all good.
Apologies, Instagram people.
Yeah.
Back into the Sermon on the Mount series.
Yeah.
This Sunday we looked at the wonderful topic of judging. Megan, do you want to read the verses for us? We looked at
I shall.
Matthew chapter 7.
Yes, so Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 to 5. Can you hear me, Mel? Yeah. Cool. It says, "Judge not, that you not be judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye."
Brilliant. Do you want to do a 30-second summary on...
Yeah, we talked about judgmentalism and actually tried to get to grips with this very familiar and famous chunk of teaching from Jesus by looking at the way that we as human beings are meant to be like God. We're actually created to bear his image. We're meant to be representatives of him and thereby representative judges. That's actually part of our calling, and yet it's gone so radically wrong that our judging is tinted with this thing called judgmentalism, what we call judgmentalism, which is, I guess, a mixture of pride and self-righteousness that Jesus is rebuking right here. And talked about how that's a way that we try to be like God in a way that we're not meant to. We're already made in his image, but we try to sort of replace him, and it leads to judgmentalism. We talked about how Jesus is able to free us from the grip of it. And that was
So I guess my starting question is, what would be the differences between judging? Oh, maybe before that. Are Christians meant to judge? Are we supposed to judge? Or is judging a no-no?
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think this passage of the Bible has been as well considered as it might. It's
Until you came along. And
until I
enlightened
came
us
along.
and pulled the wool from our eyes.
Yeah, I'm the one that brought
Judged
light.
our failure to adequately
Yes, that's
interpret
right.
these
Yes,
verses.
yes.
Thank you.
You search the scriptures diligently, seeking life, but you won't come to me.
Oh, sorry. But we are here now at Live
Here
Lunch.
I
So,
am, yeah, that's right. No, before I get struck by lightning for blasphemy, really, it's one of the most often quoted verses in the Bible. Mm-hmm. I think someone said John 3:16 used to be the most famous verse in the Bible.
Yeah.
I wonder if it has been replaced now by Matthew 7:1, because everybody seems to be quite keen to say, "You're not supposed to judge me. Don't judge me." It's seen as a bad thing to judge people in any way at all, and we can take this verse and, like with so much of the Sermon on the Mount, fail to see the real issue that's being targeted. That the heart beneath it, understand the point of what's being said, and apply it in a kind of mindlessly dull, literalistic way, without seeing no. There's a profound kind of depth of meaning. Like when Jesus says, if your eye causes you to sin, cut it out. He's clearly using language to kind of grab and grip our attention and cause us to think. It doesn't mean for us to take it literally and do what it says literally. Hello. Coffee man.
That's me.
This is excellent.
Lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Hooray.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great call.
Thank you.
It's
Oat one.
there.
Thank you, May.
Not oat one.
So I've got the normal one. Thank
Normal?
you very much.
Why would you call it normal?
It's got milk in it.
Mine has milk too. It's just milk that was
Not made from milk.
crushed oats.
Bless you.
Thank you,
Cheers.
mate.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Good man.
We have one of my favorite lunch things. You did ask me not to get you messy lunch.
Yeah, I can't cope with mess. I don't have adequate.
Just really felt the need for wings.
Wow. Okay.
The need for wings.
I think what you're saying is you knew that I can't eat wings without making a mess, so you thought
More for me.
just get wings and then
You drink
Virgo
your
doesn't get
normal
to eat.
coffee.
Excellent. That's why I have my coffee without oats in it. Oats. Anyway, let's move on. So, I can't remember what I was saying. I was saying that we are.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Like even a conversation about what kind of milk you use, I can be so judgmental. How dare you call that normal and have utter disdain for my
That's right.
oat milk flat white.
Yeah, and we could even fall out and
Yeah.
stop being friends,
Yeah.
couldn't we? Yeah, I already feel that kind of, that creeping in. Anyway, let's recover the situation. I actually can't remember. I literally can't remember what we were saying. So yes, no, I can. Now
Can Christians
I
judge?
used the word literally just there to
Yeah.
remind myself. Jesus, when he preaches the Sermon on the Mount and says, "Don't judge," he cannot be being literal in the sense that, of course, we need to judge. We
Yeah.
can't do life without judging. You
Yeah.
cannot go through life without making decisions and classifying and categorizing and saying yes to some things and no to other things and good to some things and bad to other things and true to some things and false to other things. You simply can't live that way. It's physically impossible. There's a film that was made about 5-10 years ago called Yes Man, which Jim Carrey was in, where he says yes to everything. He decides to, and it's a good example. It's just kind of playing on the idea. Can you do life that way? Well, no, you can't. You can't. So it's not that judging is wrong. In fact, judging, the moral judging that we do as conscious or as subconsciously as breathing, we can't not do it. We're always saying, oh, that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. I would suggest strongly that points to something that only the Bible begins to explain. Because if there's no God, if there's no ultimate judge, then where does this moral judging come from? Animals don't do it. There's something about humanity that makes it particularly uniquely likely to judge. And that suggests, I think, that this whole reality, the moral reality, is something from outside of us that's imposed on us. I know that there could be a lot of discussion about, isn't it just something that we've developed and evolved? It's a whole other conversation we've got time for. But in the end, I think it comes back to, no, this must be imposed on us from the outside. So judging itself is part of being made in God's image. The problem is we want to judge on our own behalf. We want to become the ultimate judges, and that's where I think judgmentalism comes in. We don't want to do it to represent God and his values and his purpose. We want it to represent ourselves as the final judges.
It's fascinating because if you're a legal judge, it's not your personal thoughts and opinions that allow you to make assessments. It's you're judging based on what the law says.
Yeah.
In some ways, your arms are tied. Yes, there's an interpretation of the law, and there's different measures of sentences that you could give out, but it is very much the law says do not murder. So if somebody's murdered, the judge or somebody's found guilty of murdering somebody, the judge has to pass sentence based on what the law says. So they are representing something far greater and far bigger, and that's what we are called to do. We are called to not just bring in our thoughts and intuitions,
Totally.
but judging on behalf of what we believe is God's moral order.
And God wanted
who
there
God
to be
is.
judges. So the judge in a law court isn't just a textbook, but is a person with decision-making power and ideally someone who's got virtue and ability and credibility that makes them trustworthy to make huge decisions. And that's the dignity of being human, that we've been given this amazing responsibility to judge and to be responsible. But it's something that we've corrupted. We've not done it.
I guess there's also such a strong emphasis on leadership in this whole process, and we often think of, oh, this leader said this and this leader said that and what have you, but you are very much in your process of leading representing God into that situation, and so you'll be held to high account and very high standard.
Certainly.
So you being a noble, fearless leader are actually going to stand before God and give account for all the decisions.
I think
and leadership
that's what
that you
Jesus is pointing out when he says in the beginning of the passage, with the measure that it is measured, what the actual verse here, verse 2, for with the judgment that you pronounce you will be judged, and the measure you use will be measured to you. That's it's similar to what James says. If you presume to teach, then you're going to get more fiercely judged in the end. So it's sobering, obviously.
Scary.
Yeah.
There seems to be the cultural assumption and rhetoric that we've moved away from being judgmental and that our society doesn't judge.
Yeah.
We're tolerant and we're accepting. Do you think that is true? Or are we a lot more judgmental now, today, than we used to be?
Well, I guess we kind of come across examples of judgmentalism in every pocket of society. In reality, we would probably imagine that we're less judgmental because we're, as a society, as a wide society, less tied up with religion, and religion is seen as the cause of all judgmentalism, or the source of judgmentalism. And in a sense, I think there's truth in that. Religion is definitely tied up with judgmentalism. Jesus was speaking to the religious people when he says, don't be like this, don't be judgmental like the Pharisees, that the religious leaders of his time were being, they're the ones he's mentioned, he's talking of in this sense. I think that ultimately, I guess it comes back to what do we mean by religion? Because in the end, it's inherently human to form a set of beliefs and assumptions that we take to be kind of the final set of values, the framework through which we should judge everything and everybody. And we're going to do that whether we believe in the Bible and Christianity or whether we believe in none of it. We will still find a set of judgmental, a set of values by which we will judge things. And we will end up doing that in a way that's judgmental, most likely. So you can live in a totally secular society, which is Brighton is mainly secular in reality. Whatever it says about being spiritual, it's not interested in the God of the Bible at the moment, not at large. But I'd say we're still just as much of a judgmental society because we judge people according to the values that prevail at the moment. So you go on social media and it's if you just look on Twitter, it's just, if you just kind of generally scroll through, just go on a YouTube page, look at the comments on a YouTube page, anything, any kind of comments online, and you get right there a showcase of how judgmentalism works, because it's it's sometimes just pages and pages of scroll down opinion, sometimes fierce opinion, but it can be without any understanding of the no patience, no fairness, no charity. It's a sort of often a sort of I want to vaunt my superiority. I want to be God in this situation. I want to show that I'm greater than you by judging you and dismissing you. Because I dismiss you, I'm greater than you. I think that's judgmentalism in a nutshell, really.
I think the imagery that comes to mind is in the HBO show The Wire. I think it was season 1. One of the main protagonists. There's this tap 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 scene where he is outside and it's the night and he's looking into a room that's well lit, and he's trying to get the attention of the person in the room because he wants to kill the person, and so he takes his gun, the nozzle of his gun, goes tap 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 against the window pane, and she can hear the sound but she can't see anything. So she literally comes up to the window and puts her face against the window, and you kind of cup your eyes, try and look outside, and bang, he shoots her. I guess my point with this is that when you're in a lit room, it's almost impossible to see into a dark room. But when you're in a dark room, it's very easy to see into a well lit room. And I guess social media shines its light on aspects of our life or our opinions or virtue signaling or whatever we'd like to communicate, but very much leaving the darkness and the other bits outside. And so when you're commenting on stuff, you're commenting from a place of, well, you can't really see what's going on the outside.
Yes,
and making an assessment of the situation.
Yeah.
Just because certain things are well lit doesn't add up, because you can't see what's going on outside.
Yeah.
And maybe you might try to look outside and get shot in the head. But
But still making those judgments so confidently and so passionately and so dogmatically. And it's irony is that, Christianity and those who follow the Bible would be perhaps perhaps we're nervous about becoming Christians because I don't want to be a dogmatic person.
Yeah.
But there are many ways in which one can become a dogmatic person, and actually the issue isn't in the end whether you become committed to a certain truth. That in itself isn't what makes you dogmatic. What makes you dogmatic in a negative sense, judgmental and harsh, is if the truth doesn't humble you. And the whole point about the Christian message, the whole point about Jesus, is that he is the truth who humbles us. When he comes into your life, the first thing he does really is he starts to deconstruct those parts of us that make us so much more proud and self-righteous. You can't really become a Christian self-righteously.
yeah.
And ultimately, there's no such thing as a self-righteous Christian. It's like saying a dry lake or dry sea. It doesn't make sense.
Or a dry oatmeal flat white.
Maybe I could think of that metaphor more. I could think of a better simile than that. But I think judgmentalism is we'll maybe come back to that. The power of Jesus to deliver us from it.
How do you graciously and speak the truth in love when you've preached on difficult issues or controversial issues today, like maybe gender and sexuality and just issues which could be sensitive? I admire the way you preach with a huge degree of graciousness, and you're not coming like an angry school teacher or an angry judge, like lay down the law and say, if you don't do this, you're wrong and eternal damnation awaits you. But it's almost as if you see beyond that. Some of these issues that people could hold to can also result in a lot of pain. Like, we don't know what's going on behind the surface. Somebody might quite vehemently argue in favor of certain rights, which you might think, are we sure about that? But it maybe comes from a place of pain, and maybe it comes from a genuine, if I say no to these things that I might have to say no to, it could destroy my life. Or I don't know, it could destroy my life, and it could lead to a lot of pain. So I like how you preach strong truth, but do it with a degree of love. And I just wonder, is what helps you, and are there any things that you say to people, like, hey, if you're in the work situation and you're confronted with an opinion that might be different to your opinion, how can you be sensitive to the question and to the heart behind the question?
When I'm preparing sermons, I always have Lionel Richie playing in the background. That's the main way that I do that. So I hope that helps.
Which album?
I can't remember. Can't Slow Down. About 1985, I think. Just Lionel Richie. That's the answer.
So if we see Lionel Richie saying,
I think you just want 80s Motown.
5 new
Help
albums
to mellow you, and it will soften any kind of harshness. That's the answer.
Yeah. Should I ask
Do you like
another
do
question?
you like the more serious?
I would
answers?
love a more serious question.
So that
Is that actually true?
no. Oh man,
checking.
did I terrify you? Then? Megan was like, "No, this can't be happening." Please. There actually are one or two Lionel Richie songs from the 80s that I play to my kids because they're that good, they're that lasting, but not many. And I wouldn't want anyone to associate me ever with that particular artist.
late, mate.
It's too late. I've just what have I done?
It's on recording.
Yeah, no, I know some
The
people
internet
who really are
knows
fans
that
of
you.
Lionel.
Yeah.
Yeah, not me. Okay, so I mean, I think in the end it really is down to understanding the passage, because what this passage does is it actually shines the light where you don't want it to. It says, "Hypocrite, look at yourself," and I think that's it. The Christian is someone who's adequately seen something of themselves to realise, I need a saviour. That's as simple as that. You know, if I know that about myself, then I'm at least less likely to exalt myself in the preaching or in the, you know. I might have to say some strong things. I might have to say some corrective. I might have to say some things that people would even dismiss as hate speech or something. I hope I hope that never happens. But that sadly is the way it can go. But
Like when you talk about Lionel Richie.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, vicious hate speech. But no, I think it's it's obvious that the person that's met Jesus just cannot do that, because you're just far more aware than you used to be. I need a saviour. I so need a saviour. So I can still correct people, but I do it from a place of, man, I'm much more aware of my fault and failure and sin, and I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to defeat you. So even from online, it's interesting. The language of debate these days is quite a giveaway. When you get different people sometimes from the what was seen as the kind of the extreme end of politics either way, or people that are just big popular kind of voices out there when it comes to political opinion and stuff.
Like Live Lunch.
But it's often so and so. Get YouTube clips. So and so destroys so and so. It's just fascinating. Isn't it? That's what debate is for. It's for destruction. It's kind of this Darwinian survival. I must defeat you. And Jordan Peterson destroys. And I'm sure that people like Jordan Peterson aren't they're not writing the titles to the YouTube videos themselves. But
Speaking in third person.
yeah, I suspect not. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Like Julius Caesar, he destroyed them. But I don't think a Christian can do that, because Jesus didn't come to destroy, but to give himself, and it's for our it's for our salvation that he did, and yeah. So the gospel just takes away, kicks the chair away from under our, and it also takes away the need to be the righteous one. This is more positive. Because the reason I'm self-righteous is because I'm so insecure. If I want to defeat you and if I want to judge you and be the one that comes out of the argument looking righteous, and you look shamed because I proved that I was right. If I'm going for that as the result, the result I want is to look righteous and be seen, and you to bow down to my righteousness. What that shows is that I crave and long for righteousness that is actually, I'm constructing it false. It doesn't work. But what Jesus does is he gives us righteousness as a gift, which has nothing to do with what we achieve. And the Christian is someone who's been received righteousness passively, just receives it. It's given by Christ. And so I go into an exchange with someone, and the worst that can happen is that at the end of the day, I'm just as righteous as I was before I started the debate. I'm just as righteous. I'm just as forgiven and loved and just have just as much merit, because it's not my merit, it's Jesus' merit. It's
Even if Jordan Peterson destroys you on YouTube, you're still righteous.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so the worst, if the whole university campus turns its ire on somebody and shows hatred for them, I mean, it'd be the most horrible thing to happen. And when you do get reviled, and it's horrible when people are cruel or judgmental towards you or condemn you, right? It's horrible. But ultimately, for the believer, you can stand even, nevertheless, you can stand secure in a righteousness that's given. That's more lasting than having destroyed someone. So I think we've got to learn to, just the gospel's freedom. It's freedom from that stuff. It's just, thank you, Jesus. I'm declared righteous. And the need to win is ultimately, I'm delivered from that. Yeah.
I was going to end with asking you what. So I'm listening to that and I'm like, man, I need to sort my life out, and I think I need heart change, and I need to be almost to be set free of a judgmental attitude. Is the remedy to that soaking in the gospel? And
I guess ultimately it must be, mustn't it? It's just like being able to settle it. What would you reckon, Meg? It's the same sort of thing. We've done all the talking basically, so I want to have a chip as well. So.
This is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
I think, when you come to it daily, it's a laying down of stuff, isn't it? And that's the humbling procedure, I guess.
Yes.
And then let that be the thing that sets up your day. Yeah. And that will set up the conversations that you have with people, and the judgmentalism, and I don't know if that's it.
Yeah. I think the daily thing is if we see our disciplines of getting time with God as a mountain to climb, as I've got to have a daily quiet time. I've got to do this in order to be a good Christian. Then when we do get into that rhythm, it will actually, I guess, it will become another cause of self-righteousness. When we sort of, I managed it. You know, I'm quite a righteous. I pray every day. But I think to go from what Jesus is saying here, it's rather that we need to be with God daily for the sake of coming into life with the right perspective. So it sets us free from the sense of I've got to climb a mountain of righteousness to I'm actually still lost in wonder at the grace of God. So if I'm you put it really crudely, if I'm really rude and nasty to one of my kids and just tear into them because of something that's just annoyed me. It's not even that they've done anything evil. It's just inconvenienced me. If I do that at 9 a.m, it suggests that probably that morning I haven't had much time being amazed at the grace of God. Probably. It's hard to go from a place of being amazed at the grace of God to being amazed at how inconvenient somebody is. You can, because it happens. It does happen, which is terrible. It's terrible, but it's probably a little less likely. And just learning to stay at that place. The people that I've known that have got freed from judgmentalism, I've watched their patience and tenderness, mellowness. I get the sense watching their life that it's probably linked with they're quite aware of the grace of God to them. They're a bit more overwhelmed with that than I am.
So good.
Yeah.
One final thought before we leave. Before judging somebody, walk a mile in his shoes.
Yes.
Because if you do, you'll be a mile away from him and have his shoes. So, top takeaway from this episode. Thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of season 2 of Live Lunch. See you next week.
See you soon.